Guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be drafting the basic bodice block. First off, I'm going to start by creating my borderline. This is going to be my center front, and this borderline is going to be my shoulder line. From my shoulder line, I'll mark out my measurements. My chest line is 8. My bust line is 10. My waistline is 16. And my hip line is 24. My shoulder is 8. I'll mark out my 8 inches, and then I'll go ahead and roll out my lines. I'll connect my shoulder line to my chest line. My bust line, my waistline, and my hip line. I'm going to label my lines. My bust point to bust point is 7 plus half inches allowance. That's 4. I'll mark out my 4 inches on my bust line. Also on my waistline and my hip line. I'll connect my lines. To mark out my dart, from my hip line I'll come up by 2 inches. And on my waistline, my dart is going to be 1.5 inch because it's the front bodice. I'm marking out my 0.75 inches for my darts on both sides. I'm going to connect my darts. From my shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. And for my neckline, I'm coming in by 3 inches. Now connect my shoulder slope. My bust is 9 inches. Plus 2 inches seam allowance, that's 11. I'll mark out my 11. On my waistline is 28 divided by 4, that's 7, plus the 1.5 we minus for that, that's 8.5. Since the waistline is not straight, it's curvy. For curvy areas, we will leave 1.5 inches allowance. That's 10. My hip is 37 divided by 4. plus 2 inches allowance. Since my waist is not straight, I will use my French cuff to blend it a little. From my shoulder slope, I'm going to get the midpoint. This is 6.5. The midpoint is going to be, and I'm coming in by half an inch because of the bust. From my shoulder line, I'm coming down by 3 inches for my neckline. So it's going to be my center front. I'll cut out my pattern. Cut carefully. Remember to cut your center front on fold. This is my borderline. From my borderline, I will go in by 2 inches for my back bodice for zip allowance. I'm marking out my 2 inches. I'm going to roll out my line. And I'll label my line. This is the zip allowance. I'm going to trace out my front bodice to my back bodice. My 10 inches for my bust line because of my dart intake. I will roll out my line. From my bust point, I'll also mark out my 4 inches for my dart intake. So I'm going in by 4 inches. I'll also mark my 4 inches. My waistline is 16, so from here to here is 10, and then 10 plus 6-16. So this point is my waistline, and then from my hip line I'm coming up with 2 inches. Since this is the back bodice, my dart intake is going to be 1 inch. That's half inches on both sides. For my neckline, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. Then I'll connect from my shoulder slope. Since my back bodice doesn't accommodate any bust, the armhole is not going to be shallow, so I'll have a new armhole. I'll blend my waistline. So I'll cut out my pattern. I'll label my pattern. This is the back bodice. And this is the front bodice. For your front bodice, you are cutting and fold, and for your back bodice, you are cutting 2 pieces. That is all for your basic bodice block. This is my front bodice and this is my back bodice. You can get any design whatsoever from altering this basic bodice block. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. See you in my next one.